What I say to people out that I talk to and I mentor is that no matter what you do, make sure you are learning and pulling nuggets from everything so that you can draw upon them. Do I know everything? No. But I am comfortable saying what I don't know, asking for help, and letting the experts who, even though they report to me, letting them do their job.
Welcome to Beyond the Ledger, real conversations with people driving business forward. I'm Troy Ashby, CPA and host. Each episode, we unpack stories, challenges, and insights from today's top accounting and finance leaders. This podcast is brought to you by my friends over at MarketScale. Welcome back to Beyond the Ledger. Today's guest is Raquel Hardy, Senior Director of Accounting Operations at Parkland Health, with more than 30 years of experience across audit, technical accounting, and financial operations. She's built her career by stepping into unfamiliar territories, strengthening control environments, and building what she calls dream teams along the way. Raquel, good to see you.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me. I can't wait to share your story and learn about all your twists and turns along the way. But before we jump in, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you that they couldn't find on a resume or LinkedIn?
I kind of stumbled upon my career. Okay. So since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I went to school, LSU, to be a veterinarian. And about my junior year, I finally decided I hate science. And I love animals, but I didn't want to be in school much longer. So I switched to accounting because it was easy and I love math.
Okay.
And now here I am.
And here you are. Right now, my daughter wants to be a veterinarian, and she also doesn't like science. So I'm trying to get ahead of this a little bit.
Enlighten her. Do what you love doing.
Yeah. That's great. Well, you and I have known each other for a long time, several different companies, and I've learned more just by kind of exploring the pre-podcast stuff. Like I've learned some things about you that I hadn't known, and I think it actually gives me more reason and more excitement to kind of have you on here because there's more to you than the Raquel, the successful internal controls turned operations gal. One of the things that we were kind of talking before, you were kind of going through kind of your evolution. And I know now you've actually learned later in your career that we'll get to, but talk about those foundational moments and kind of as you've moved through the control environments and kind of how that sets you up for success.
Yeah. So originally I started out as an auditor. Well, that was how I identified myself. I am an auditor. I have a CPA. I am an accountant now, but I saw myself as an auditor. But then as I kept, evolving into who I was going to grow up into, I realized that, no, I'm a process improvement person. And that's what I love to do. And so I'll serve any role in a company where they need me if it involves me being able to improve processes, build controls, and I love building teams so that they can go on and do the same thing.
Got it. What is it about those processes that that maybe you see that other people don't? Is there something that excites you about that?
I joke with people and say that I see life out of like process flows. I don't know what type of mind that is, but even like, us getting on this podcast, I'm going to sit down at the table and then if this, then that. And it's just how my brain works. I see things as processes with if-then statements. And so being in control. So like I said, I started out in audit. I love there being rules, expectations, and then measuring whether people meet those expectations. So as an auditor, that's what I love doing. But then I realized I want to go a step further. I want to help them put the fixes in place. And then so once I left the audit world, I went into operations. Of all places, I went from auditing healthcare to physician contracting. How do you make that switch, right?
Yeah.
And it was because it's an area for hospitals that is so critical and can cause a hospital to lose all of its government funding. So that's how I got into physician contracting. And there I implemented processes to help ensure that we were paying accurately, contracting appropriately, reporting what we did, all things you learn in auditing. And I tell people to do, but I got to implement.
And you fast forwarded a lot.
Oh, I did.
Well, think about that. Like most people on here may not know you except for your friends that you may share it with, but
right.
It's like you didn't just transition from audit to operations. I mean, you made a career of audit and,
I did.
So what was that like? Because you had to learn something pretty new in what you've done. But I mean, how many years in audit before you made that switch?
Oh, it was maybe 12, 13.
Yeah.
13 years in audit, doing different types of audit.
Sure.
Like, I've never done the same type of audit. I audited vendor contracts. I audited for hospitals. I did financial hospital audits. And then I went into more operational audits.
Yeah.
I did investigations because I work for the Inspector General Office of Louisiana. And so there was a lot of years of audit, and I truly did identify as an auditor, right?
Yeah.
And it took maturing and willing to take risks. I'm not a risk taker at all. So when I worked for Baylor, I had a 16-year career. And, I think one of the benefits of staying with a company for a while is that people are willing to take a chance on you in an area you may not have as much experience. And so what I do is when I go into a new role, I study. No matter what I did, every audit role I did, I became a master of that industry. So I know contracting. I know how hospitals buy stuff, how they reduce the cost of that. One of my first jobs out of school was I taught how to do payroll, completing a 941 for payroll. And so now I'm over the payroll department, right? And so every step of the way, I am learning and trying to master whatever I'm doing, however small it is.
I think you undersold yourself a little bit. Yes, being at a company the size of Baylor, you do and can have more opportunities presented to you because there are more opportunities. But you have to position yourself because, you are internally promoting. People have to believe in you and trust you and sign off on, hey, look, Raquel, I worked with Raquel. She's going to be great. This is going to be a good person. So don't undersell yourself. That is a huge thing. And that's one of the things I really admired about, following you in your career as long as I have, and how you would move and shift. And sometimes it was like just a step over. And then to see you into an operations role is something that I wanted you to share, because sometimes I talk to people that have been either in audit for a couple of years or even 10 years, and they feel, and sometimes rightfully so, and you might be able to test this too, like almost like I've been in it. And what if I want to do something different? Yes. Right?
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary, especially when you identify as what you do.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, as I built my audit career, there was a company that moved me out here. They moved me from a government job. I was working as an auditor for the state inspector general. And I interviewed with them, and they turned me down, but I stayed in touch with them. I emailed, I checked in, and 5 months later, they hired me and relocated me to Dallas. So, part of it really is, for me, has been surrounding myself with people that believe in me. I listen to others because sometimes I don't always know what's best for me. Like moving to Dallas on a whim, sure. No, my friend said, Raquel, you're going to go and do it. Because she knew what I had in me. Just sometimes I need that little push,
right?
To say, do it, from people I know care and want the best for me.
It's funny. A good friend of mine, we call them our network or our mentors, but a good friend of mine calls them her hype squad. Those people that'll,
it's definitely
right? Yeah. Shout out to Henna Pryor for the hype squad. But yeah, I love that. I love that you had somebody that believed in you and also pushed you. I don't want to skip over something that I think you said, or that I know you said, that is really valuable. You didn't get selected for that role, but because you stayed in touch and you
Yes.
obviously made a good impression, may not have been a fit then, but I think that's something that people don't do enough of. Like that self-advocacy, I think for
Yes.
accountants in general is hard, but just because that position wasn't a fit then doesn't mean it's not a fit later. So kudos to
That's
you.
correct.
What a great lesson for
That
those
is correct.
that made it get turned down.
And it takes being humble, which is hard sometimes, I will say, because you have to know that you weren't the right person at that right time
Right. Yep.
and not you weren't the right person. And so it worked out. Um, so then say I moved on to auditing, financial audit for healthcare. I love healthcare. My mom was a nurse, so it felt like a natural progression for me, but it was a for profit. But I'm telling you, I took every nugget I could. I worked there for 4 years and learned everything I could about hospital accounting, uh, how they record, how the operations work. I mean, I study. And then one day I am on the monsterjob.com. Like, you remember that was a thing? And I searched audit manager and Baylor came up. I applied, interviewed the next week, and got the job,
There you
right?
go.
And so, and no recruiter, sorry. However, there is where I met you, and you
That's
helped
right.
recruit a lot of my best friends to this
I,
day.
if we could put together that little, org chart or, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, like,
Yes,
it's
it would
funny
be
because there's
seven
so
degrees
many.
of Troy Ashby.
There's so many. And, that's a really good
And we
hype
still
squad.
hang out today. That
That's a
whole
really
Baylor
good squad.
audit crew. It
Yep.
was such an amazing group, and I will give you a little kudos for your 8-year anniversaries. That you know how to pick people that fit in the company and not just fill a role. So
Oh,
I appreciate that.
well, first of all, thank you. It's something that is hard every day, but it's because the skills are part of the job, but culture, it's why I always insist on going out and meeting with my clients and whoever's hiring in person, because the more I get to know you, the more I can actually understand if we can find the right person that can not only do the job but also fit in. And I think that's the thing that sometimes people overlook. But yeah, great. This is not about me. This is about you. Great trip down.
You're right. I just had to give you those kudos.
This is why I love you. You're my hive squad.
Yes.
Um, one of the things, and I hope you're okay that they asked this question, but one of the reasons, or one of the things that I think you can also add some value that you'd shared with me in the past is being in transition and learning from that, pushing through that adversity, because you're a very strong, confident woman, and in being caught in transition puts people into a different skill set or a different mindset. I think people can learn from some of your experiences and maybe just hear how you went through it too.
Okay. So I have been laid off for 2 jobs. One, Baylor, I was there for 16 years. In another company, I was there for 2 years, the one right after. So this is back to back. And I'll tell you, for a person that identifies with the work they do, it was heartbreaking. I had to grieve and accept that I was not my job and it wasn't personal. Both jobs, I worked to the last hour. I clocked out at 5 o'clock, and then I went and turned in their equipment on the next day. So even though those were unfortunate circumstances and it broke my heart, I found ways to improve and keep going. So, for example, when I left, I'll tell you a story about trying to stay positive in light of, being in a rough situation, a tough transition that I didn't want to make, is that when I left Baylor, I was laid off. Within a month, I think I contacted you and said, "Hey, there's this position you're promoting for an account manager over controls. I love process improvements. I want you to put me in." You were like, It's a step down. I was like, I don't care. I'm good. Just put it in. You put it in. I interviewed. During the interview, I talked about what I could do for the company and help them move forward. And do you remember what job they offered me?
You got a higher level position.
I got a higher level position.
Yep.
By just within a month of being laid off.
Yep.
So, and then when I was laid off the second time, I had a lot more time. It was like 4 months unemployed because I decided I did not want to go into accounting.
Yep.
Absolutely did not want to go into accounting. I loved process improvements. I enjoyed doing SOX work when I was doing it. And then I got a call one day from a recruiter that says, Raquel, I think you'll be perfect for this job. It wasn't Troy this time.
Can't always be Troy.
Can't always be. And I said, okay, I'll sit for it. I accepted a job as the director of accounting. And within 2 years, I was promoted to director of operations.
Yeah.
So I'm now over accounting, AP, and payroll. And
can we pivot for a second or pause for a second? Because I don't, these are two stories, and I want to go back to the first one because I don't want this to get lost. You absolutely convinced me to send your resume, and I didn't want you. I'd known you for a long time. I didn't want you to be underemployed. But you made it very clear, and I think it would be good for people to hear this. There are some people that say that out of desperation, and there are other people like you who say it out of genuine, like being genuine about it. You were more thinking, look, if this place has upward trajectory, then I think I can elevate myself in a relatively fast period of time. And then that you did such a great job, they actually noticed that, well, let's just give her a higher level job now. And, without you advocating in that way, it wouldn't have ever happened. So I think that is one of the lessons is don't sell yourself short. Even because you're in transition doesn't mean you're worthless.
I love the way you said that. You feel worthless. I mean, you have that little voice in the side of your head says, how worthless do I have to be for my job to lay me off after 16 years? And then, but ultimately it wasn't about me. It was about, this is how I said it to myself to make me feel better, is that it's about them doing what they need to do to be able to continue to give care to the patients they have to do. So they had to make business decisions. Unfortunate for me, but next.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I wanted you to share some of this because it does put people into the wrong mindset. It does wreak havoc, and people think about only the bad things. Even people that get fired doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad apple. You just, maybe it wasn't the right fit. Maybe you have some more learning to do, but it puts people into, it's just really emotional. And you handled it. And now granted, the first one wasn't very long, but you handled these with grace. You got a job, you went into accounting, and then you get into operations. You now have things that you had only audited, and now you're supervising.
Now
right?
I'm supervising.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to boot, we did a workday implementation, like my first few months of the job. And so into the promoted job. And I will say, once again, I draw from all of my past experiences, so, and what I say to people out that I talk to and I mentor is that no matter what you do, make sure you are learning and pulling nuggets from everything so that you can draw upon them. Do I know everything? No. But I am comfortable saying what I don't know, asking for help, and letting the experts who, even though they report to me, letting them do their jobs. I support them. I try to learn so that I am not a crutch for them, but I allow people who are subject matter experts to do their job.
I love that. I love that. Hire, you know,
Yeah.
and that happens every day, hiring people that are even better than you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
It only
yes.
makes you a better leader
You
too.
can't be afraid of that.
That's right. Well, so in this role, how big is your scope? Because I think there's even another piece that you've learned recently. But I don't know if I'm mistaken or not. But like you've got a pretty large team, right?
Oh, yeah. So we have the accounting department. We are Parkland Health's accounting department. So we do corporate and the hospital. We consolidate the affiliates, which are like the foundation and a research arm. We also now have under my area is accounts payable. So we pay all the bills and payroll and we pay all the employees. So we handle all things finance in this department.
And is some of that offshore?
No, we
No,
are
that's an offshore.
100% onshore.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In office, local.
Yep. Awesome.
And one of the things about that is because Dallas is a county hospital. So I had to learn a different type of accounting. This is governmental accounting, right? Although some things are hospital is hospitals, you know, debits, credits. But I did have to learn there's different income streams and how you account for those. There is a different pool of people that work for Parkland. You know, it's not my normal group of people that I've worked with for 16 years. And so I'm having to learn new names. And as I told you, I study and I learn. And so I'm having to put myself in a situation where I'm learning a whole new group of people and market and creating my hype, you know, people in a new realm.
Now, how long have you been there now?
I've been at Parkland for 2 years and 2 months.
Can't believe it's already been that long.
Me either.
That's pretty amazing.
It's been a rough path, I'll tell you. I'm just like, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a process improvement, right? And, you know, came into this department and there were people that have been there for a long time, 12, 13 years. It is so common. And that when I come in, I want to do things that are efficient and I'm willing to throw it up and let's see where it lands and try. And I had to sell that to people because my goal is I don't want to make anybody feel like they're unwanted as well. So coming into a new department as a process improvement person that is now going to lead them, I had to assume a new role for me, slow it down, get people to buy in on my process improvements, which some I'm still working on those buy-ins so that we can do things that are going to make it better for us in the long run.
Yeah. So speaking of that, you know, being a process improvement person and having to get buy-in. I mean, well, I guess you don't have to get buy-in, but
I don't have to, right?
Right. But you know, that's a communication skill you've had to develop.
Yes.
How does that work? Especially with process improvement.
I will say it goes back to my audit days. You know, you remember like you have to sit in the audit room and I have to communicate that you have done something that wasn't very good. And you have to improve it and you have to improve it by a certain period of time. I always loved being the nice auditor. And so I sold people on it because I believe if you get buy-in, people are willing to do what you want them to do easier than if I'm fighting them. I use that same skill now. When I'm offering a process improvement, I try to sell people on things to improve them because with any process improvement, there is an uncomfortable period where you will not know what you're doing and it will be uncomfortable. But once you get past that point, you will be more efficient. And I think you'll learn easily because you're not just doing tasks, you are meeting an objective. And so that's how I approach that.
Yep. What I know about you and your humility always comes out, and you want you to brag on yourself more. You've made changes, you've made pivots, you've changed your career several times along the way. So before we close, I think you're always more humble. And I think one of the reasons I enjoy you is you don't give yourself enough kudos, but you've done a lot of things. I would love to know if there was only one thing that you could tell somebody, maybe tell yourself 10 years ago or tell somebody 10 years your junior, like, what is that one thing that you would say Got to do it.
Take chances. Like, don't be afraid. Don't put yourself in a box. Like I said, I'm an auditor. I only do audit. Well, there are ways to take the skills that you do as an auditor, that you learn as an auditor, and apply it to whatever you do. And so if you allow yourself to transfer skills as opposed to just a job description, you can accomplish so much more than you even know it, Raquel, 10 years ago. And so I think that's important for people who are newly coming out, who are been in the same job for a while. Don't be afraid. Sell your skills and don't worry about the duties, the job duties all the time.
I love it. Take chances. As accountants, taking chances isn't really in our DNA,
Not our thing. Right.
And you said it earlier at the very beginning, you said I wasn't a risk taker, but then you keep taking these risks.
No, like, how does this happen?
Calculated risks, I think is what it comes down to. But I think that's
blessings. I have to say they're blessings as well.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Well, Raquel, I had so much fun. It was great to see you again. I can't wait to explore even further. And thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm Troy Ashby. And remember, people are more than their titles, and companies are more than their balance sheets. Follow Beyond the Ledger so you never miss an episode.